Ever wonder what your freelancer on Upwork is missing out with Filipino benefits? This episode is going to run you through the standard benefits required of all full-time employees in the Philippines and some of the optional benefits that employers provide to their employees. Hi, I'm Bryan. I'm the host of the Philippine Business Playbook podcast, and I'm the CEO of Tahche. Many of our clients come to me and they talk about, the low salaries in the Philippines and the economies of working with people in the Philippines to gain advantage of those salary differences. But one thing I want to talk to them about is the significant benefits that are available to full-time employees in the Philippines. So even though the sum of the salaries might be lower, the social safety net that the government of the Philippines has provided for their full-time employees is significant. And so that is the reason that I think that when you're utilizing freelancers on Upwork or onlinejobs.ph or one of those job sites where they're not receiving these benefits, I think that's a significant detriment to the Filipino people and really is a long-term hindrance to your company, because these employees, as they're in those freelance situations for a year or 2 years, they're going to realize that they're missing out on a lot of these benefits and their long-term goals with regard to Social Security and healthcare. Those things are not going to be taken care of, and it's going to be a reason for them to leave that freelance situation and look for a full-time employee-employer relationship where they will get all of the benefits that the people of the Philippines really fought for, and the government of the Philippines provides and requires of all of their employers in the Philippines. So without further ado, let's run through some of these benefits. So you have the SSS, or the Social Security benefits, which are required of all of employees and are split between the employer and the employee, just like in the US. These Social Security benefits cover health issues or elderly, and on kind of all of the typical things that you expect with regard to Social Security in the US. Those type of benefits are provided for Filipino employees that have been paying into the system. We've had scenarios where a freelancer was not paying into their SSS benefits, not paying the taxes that they should because they're getting paid cash via Upwork or onlinejobs.ph, or you're sending them money via PayPal, and they're not paying their taxes as they should, and then they get in a situation where they need to avail of the Social Security benefits because of a health issue that they have or some other issue that comes up, and because they've not been paying into the Social Security system, they're then left high and dry and unable to avail of those benefits that should have been provided for them. Additionally, the Philippines government requires that the employers pay into the PhilHealth requirements for an employee. So in the Philippines, they have national health care, which is great and provides a minimum level of health care for all of their citizens. And employees are required to pay into the PhilHealth system as part of their employment to ensure that it pays for everyone. And if you're not doing that because you're working as a freelancer, or you're not paying your taxes because you're getting paid via cash or PayPal or something like that, you're not going to be able to avail of all of those benefits that would normally be available to you. Additionally, the Philippines has a very unique system called Pag-IBIG. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But that really is for a system that the Philippines government provides to allow for housing loans and cash loan payments for certain scenarios. And so if there's a typhoon, or if there's some other natural disaster, or if you just want to try and buy your first house, the government has this program set up where you're able to get low interest loans based on what you've been paying into the Pag-IBIG system, and it's really a great first step for Filipinos to buy their first homes. And if you can imagine, as a freelancer, as somebody that's working on Upwork or onlinejobs.ph, you're getting paid cash, and you're maybe not paying all of your taxes that you should be paying. And this is one that very often we see freelancers are not doing. And it really hurts them in the long run, because when they get to a point where they're like, oh, I'd like to make that investment. I'd like to buy a home, or I'm living in a home and there's some disaster and I'm trying to get some sort of loan or something like that to help pay for repairs. You're just not going to be able to have those opportunities to you. And so it really, it's really a shame about these scenarios where employees that are working hard and doing good work have a disaster that happens, and then they're really in a tough bind because they haven't been paying into this nice system that the government requires. Additionally, the Philippines has 13th month pay, and a lot of people are very familiar with this. Even if you're working with employees on Upwork or onlinejobs.ph, you know that there's 13th month pay, and it's something that comes up with employees. But I think what people don't realize is it's really a relatively complicated formula for determining what that 13th month pay should be. And so if you're not doing it the right way, if you're not paying your employees 13th month pay according to all of the laws of the Philippines government with regard to prorated amounts and regularization and paying it at the right time and all of these things, you're really going to end up putting your employee in a bind. And for a lot of employers in the US that are hiring people in the Philippines for the first time, or maybe not for the first time, but have only done it through freelancer situations, this can really become a complicated scenario. You hired somebody in April. How much of a 13th month pay should you give them in December when it's their time? You hire somebody in April and you let them go in November because you don't have the work anymore. What are they due 13th month pay? There's going to be scenarios where you hire them in November. And coming up on December, do you need to pay them a 13th month pay? Or they've been working for you for a year and 9 months, 2 years and 4 months. All these scenarios where usually what happens is you end up doing something wrong, you're paying them late, you're not paying them as much as they expect, and all of a sudden your employee's disgruntled and they're not communicating with you, and they're going to start looking for another job. And it's going to be a situation where maybe you wanted to do the right thing, but you just didn't know. And the employee is concerned about talking to you about the situation, about telling you what the right thing is, and just kind of retreats into a shell and is not happy about their scenario and thinking that you as the employer are cheating them out of what they rightfully would be required by the Philippines government. Or the opposite. Sometimes you may have an employee that tries to take an advantage of you because you don't know what the rules are. And they're going to say that they should be getting a full 13th month payment when maybe they're not entitled to that, or even multiple of that, a 14th month pay or 15th month pay. So it becomes an awkward situation if you don't fully know the rules. Additionally, the Philippines government requires service incentive leave, or essentially vacation time, for all of the regularized employees in the Philippines that have been working for an employer for 1 year. So they're required to get 5 days off at a minimum. And I know that most freelancers, when they're working for an employer on Upwork or onlinejobs.ph, there just isn't that conversation about what kind of vacation time are they getting. And it's not just time off, it's paid time off. And so how's that conversation going to work? And it really becomes awkward when you're working with essentially a freelancer that you're asking to do full-time work for you, that you're hoping is a part of your team and an important person doing really important work for you, and you don't have a clear understanding of what their vacation time is or service incentive leave. The minimum requirement is 5 days. For most of our employees at Tahche, we try and do above that. You have sick time, you have vacation time, and these are things that you really want to have a clear written agreement to at the beginning, an employment agreement that outlines all of that, and it's something that is usually misunderstood or not addressed in a freelance situation, and becomes, again, another point of contention down the road, and really can lead to bad feelings between you and an employee maybe that you like, that you want to keep around, but you make these mistakes and all of a sudden they start adding up, and the employee decides that, hey, maybe it's time for me to look somewhere else. Additionally, the Philippines government requires that there's night differential pay. So for most of our U.S. clients, they want the employees to be working on U.S. time, whether it's Western time or Eastern time or somewhere in between. They want them to be working those daylight hours. So it's night shift here in the Philippines. If you're working on the East Coast, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift, that's going to be, depending if it's daylight savings time or not, 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. here in the Philippines. And so the Philippines government requires that a premium pay be given for night shift work. Now, I know you're going to say, well, when we negotiate the fee or the salary with the employee, they know that they're working night shift, and that should be covered in that. But again, this is another scenario where the freelance ecosphere doesn't align with the Philippines government, and you're going to end up potentially having another miscommunication where you think that you're paying them the right amount, but the employee thinks that they're getting a night differential. They're going to be sometimes working during the day and sometimes working at night. Maybe it's a split shift. Some days are night shift, some days are day shift. And really, by law, they should be getting a night differential payment for those night shift hours. And if you don't acknowledge that, if you don't pay that, or if you don't have an agreement with regards to that, there's potentially a miscommunication there, and a situation where your employee is not going to be happy with you as an employer, and potentially going to be leaving for you. And then finally, it's holiday pay. So the Philippines has 22 holidays and floating holidays and holidays that aren't assigned until the very last minute. It's something that we need to be following as an employer in the Philippines. We're keeping track of almost on a daily basis, because the Philippines government sends out these bulletins and they say the president's declared next Friday is a holiday, and it just happens like that. It's not like in the U.S. where you've got your 12 or 14 or whatever the number is holidays, and they're kind of set, and everyone knows at the beginning of the year what they are. It's a little bit more fluid in the Philippines. Additionally, if you're working with a freelancer, you might be thinking about just your U.S. holidays, and those holidays are not the same. Obviously, Independence Day in the U.S. is going to be different than Independence Day in the Philippines. And so how you handle those holidays and what holidays you want them to work and what you pay them on those holidays is going to be very important. I know that if you're working on Upwork, it doesn't give you an opportunity to say, hey, you're working on Philippine Independence Day, you should be getting a premium for this day. It doesn't say that, oh, you're working on one of the Muslim holidays that are mandatory in the Philippines, and you should be paying them a premium. Or you're working on Christmas and you should be getting a double premium. Those things are not even an option for you on Upwork. Or if you're on onlinejobs.ph, it becomes a much more complicated thing, and as a result, your employee is not going to be getting paid as much as they should, and it's going to create a division that over time, I assure you, is not going to be something that they're going to be happy about. So these are the basic benefit requirements that are required of all employees in the Philippines that are working a full-time regularized position with an employer in the Philippines. And if you're not, if you don't have a corporation in the Philippines and you're not paying your employees that, they're going to be missing out on some of this. Now, theoretically, for SSS and PhilHealth and Pag-IBIG, they can be paying their own taxes and they can make sure that they're making those contributions. But I can tell you, probably like a lot of people in the US that are working on Upwork and Fiverr or whatever, and all those places, they're probably not paying their taxes as they should be, and until it's too late. And then they find out that, oh boy, I really wish I had been paying my Social Security all those years. And so you're not doing your employee a favor, and at some point they're going to figure out that, boy, I really should be paying into this, and then that relationship is going to be very difficult for you to maintain. One thing I want to point out is at Tahche, we're very proud that in 2022 we actually got an award from the Philippines government for following all of these benefit requirements. Our country manager, Aimeline C., was on stage with the Philippine president, receiving an award with all of these huge corporations, the banks and the airlines and other huge corporations. We were representing the small and medium-sized businesses, and something that I'm really proud of. And I know when we got the award, it was kind of like, oh, you paid your taxes, you got an award. But I had to tell everyone, it was like, this means that we're doing the right thing, that we're following the rules, that we're making sure that all of the benefits that Filipino employees require, they're getting. And we're not trying to cheat anyone. We're paying them on time. We're doing the right thing. And to be recognized by the Philippine government for that, for all of the small and medium-sized businesses in the country, was amazing, and something that I'm really, really proud of. Okay, so you've moved beyond just having a freelancer. You're actually working with an agency or have a corporation in the Philippines, and you're providing all of the basic benefits that the Philippines government requires. That's great, but everyone in the Philippines doing that's the requirement of working in the Philippines as an employer in the Philippines. That's the table stakes. So everyone's doing that. How are you going to differentiate yourself from the other employers of the Philippines? How are you going to make your workplace a desirable place to work because you're going above and beyond that requirement of other employers in the Philippines? And it's the same as in the U.S. In the U.S., you've got different health benefits and 401ks and other things that you're doing. You need to do those same types of things in the Philippines. And so what are some of those things that you're going to do? I mean, one of the main things you're going to provide is an HMO, or a supplementary health care. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a PhilHealth system, a national health care system that all employees, all citizens really get in the Philippines. But it really is minimum. And so any employee that gets a job in the Philippines, they're going to be looking to get some of that supplementary health care that includes dental and vision and health care for their dependents. And so there's different levels to that. You can have a high balance allowance on there. You can have 2 dependents. Another thing that's very common in the Philippines is dependents is not only your children, as in the U.S., but also it can include elderly parents or other relatives that live in the home with you. So most of our employees at Tahche are the breadwinners of the family, and just like a lot of countries in the Philippines, many homes are multi-generational, and so the breadwinner of the family not only is taking care of their children, they're also taking care of their elderly parents or uncles or other people in the family. And so healthcare, supplementary healthcare, sometimes will allow for those additional dependents to be included on the policy. And that's something that we do at Tahche, and something that we do above and beyond the basic requirements that is really, I think, a desirable thing for employees in the Philippines. Additionally, there's transportation and meal allowances. And so on the face of it, these are additional allowances that you provide to help offset transportation costs and meal costs for your employee. But I think, honestly, it's also a way that you can help with their tax requirements for the employee. So if you give them a transportation and meal allowance of, let's say, 5,000 pesos a month, that is going to be non-taxable for the employee. And so just like in the US, if you're playing by the rules and you're following all of the tax laws of the country, there's going to be opportunities where you can form your pay in ways that benefits the employee so that they are paying all of their required taxes, but have some income that is non-taxable, in this case, a transportation and meal allowance. So that's something that we do for many of our employees, and it allows us to make sure that everyone's following the rules, but you're also giving them an allowance for transportation and meal that is non-taxable. Additionally, there's mental health support and nursing facilities. And so in our office, we have a full-time nurse that is there to help any employee that has, needs a Tylenol or just is feeling stressed or whatever, and can really help with those employees in those situations. It is actually a requirement in the Philippines that once you get to a certain threshold of employees within an office, that you have a nurse on site to help those employees. And so if you're working with a freelance situation, or if you're working with people that are work from home, they don't have an office, if you're working with an agency that doesn't have an office and all their people are work from home, they're not going to have the possibility or the option to have a nurse that they can go to for those kind of minor, let's say, non-hospital required visits that can be taken care of, but just visiting a nurse in the office. And so working with I don't want to say legit, but let's say more formal agency that has an actual office with people going to the office means that if they get to a certain size, are going to have a nurse on staff that's available to help their staff, and is a added benefit for the employees working for that company. Additionally, there's flexible work arrangements, and so if you have a full-time employee, you still want to try and find ways that they can get some of that flexibility that maybe they were enjoying as a freelancer. And so if you're giving them flexible work arrangements where their hours maybe are mid-shift, so that there's some overlap with the US, or maybe there's only certain days, or you allow them to have a schedule that aligns with their spouse or their kids' work schedule, those are going to be really beneficial to the employee and make your work arrangement better. And something that I think you would want to talk to your employee about, and finding what is the best work schedule that fits their needs, but also fits the needs of the company. Additionally, if you're having an employee work from home, even if they're within an agency, you can have a situation where you provide some sort of allowance for internet or even electricity. These are things that sometimes people don't think about, but if you have an employee working from home and you don't necessarily love the internet speed that they're utilizing, if you can imagine, some people even in the US, they're getting a lower level internet. And if you want them to actually have video calls and do work with large files and stuff like that, you may want them to upgrade their internet. And so one thing that we facilitate is internet allowances and stuff like that can improve their work environment when they're working from home. So that's something to think about if you have an employee that's working from home. Additionally is the celebration of Philippine holidays. So I know that you're in the US and you're hiring somebody in the Philippines, and all of a sudden you see the holiday list and there's 22 holidays on there, and there's Good Friday and All Saints Day and these holidays that maybe you've kind of vaguely heard about, but you don't really understand, and you don't know really how important these holidays are. I could tell you that certain holidays like Good Friday and All Saints Days, these really are big holidays in the Philippines. And these are holidays where families get together and there's traditions around them. And so if you are able to, it's really important to allow your employee to have these days off, even though it's a working day in the US. Just remember that, you've got Thanksgiving, you're potentially going to be taking that day off, but your Filipino employee probably would not mind working on Thanksgiving because it's not a holiday in the Philippines. So vice versa, certain holidays in the Philippines really are important days, Easter additionally, and so it's really would be beneficial to them to acknowledge that and give them those days off. Additionally, there's more tangible things like office perks. So, in our office, we really try to make it a comfortable environment. So we've got a break nook, we've got, a rice cooker that's going all the time with free rice in there and coffee, obviously. And you can have things like an entertainment lounge with games and stuff like that. And you really just want to make sure that you've got facilities that are inviting, are a place that they're going to be excited to go to. And I think facilitate communication amongst your employees so that they can create those relationships and have opportunities to have conversations that are more, let's say, casual in nature. And I think those are some of the huge benefits of having an office. And so why not lean into it and provide those perks that an employee is really going to benefit from and maybe don't even realize up front, but over time see how that really improves their life at work and makes it more enjoyable and something that they want to do for the long term. And then one thing that we've implemented at Tahche is the formation of clubs. And so I'm really excited about this. This is something that we did in the past year. So we've got a running club, we've got a basketball club, there's a Toastmasters club. We've had the beginnings of an esports club, and there's other things, book reading club. There's other things that we're looking into. But we wanted to create more opportunities for our employees to work together. And so a client that works with us, even if they only have 2 or 3 employees, they're in the office here with all of the other Tahche employees, and they're going to have that camaraderie of joining the running club, for example, and doing road races here in the Philippines and training runs together. And we have, I think, over 100 employees that have joined that club and partake in various events, and it's been really exciting to see that. Additionally, we have a basketball club. Just like softball leagues in the US, basketball is a huge thing here in the Philippines. And there's leagues that different corporations come together with. And so we had tryouts, and I think about 15 people were on the team. I was actually lucky enough to participate in that. And it didn't hurt myself, so I was happy about that. But I think overall did pretty well. And it's just an amazing opportunity to interact with your fellow employees in a casual setting, and I think really created a bond with that team and all of the other employees that came to cheer them on. I was really excited to see the number of employees that came and cheered them on as well. And also one of our other big clubs is the Toastmasters Club. I know that from my experience with Toastmasters in the US, it's a great organization that really develops leaders within an organization and gives them the confidence in speaking and communicating with others. And so we're very proud to have started a Toastmasters Club with our employees joining that and learning everything that the Toastmasters group has to offer for them. So that's another thing that we're very excited about. So these are all perks that you can provide for your employees, some of them a little bit more mundane than usual and looked for, like the supplementary healthcare, and some of them a little bit more unique and maybe outside the box, like the clubs that I talked about. And so if you can find ways to differentiate your company from other companies, and certainly from the freelance environment, you're going to be a place where employees really want to work. And so maybe some of those benefits, those perks that we're providing for our employees beyond the basic requirements is something that you want to consider for the employees that you're providing, either through an agency that you're working with at Tahche, or if you have a corporation in the Philippines, what you're doing for those employees as well. So I hope this episode was enjoyable and helpful and taught you a little bit about the benefits in the Philippines. I know that everyone thinks about the salaries and the levels that they're at, but the Philippines government really has done an amazing job of providing a social safety net for their employees, a requirement for benefits that meet the needs of their citizens. And I think it's up to us as employers in this country working with these beautiful people, these amazing, talented people, to give them all of the benefits that the government of the Philippines requires, and hopefully a little bit more, adding a little bit of a few more perks on top of that so that you can have amazing employees that are super happy to be working with you and want to stay with you for a very long time. So until next time, I'm Bryan Luoma. This is the Philippine Business Playbook podcast. Please like this video if you found it interesting and helpful, and if you've got any comments or additional perks or benefits that you would like as an employee or that you think would be great to provide to your employees, please add that in a comment below. I'd love to hear that. And if you know somebody that is hiring people in the Philippines or has teams in the Philippines, please share this to them. I think maybe they might find that useful and can start being part of our community and adding to the conversation as well. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. There's going to be a lot more coming from us. And until next time, I'll see you later. And looking forward to talking to you again on the Philippine Business Playbook podcast.